Oh, you got such a good view of me. Oh. Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Good evening, everybody. No handouts tonight. You can focus all. Yeah, I know. You can focus all of your attention on me, so that's good, more or less, give or take. But meanwhile, however, what I'm going to do is that over the course of this evening, I'm going to reintroduce all of us to the fourth bracha of benching. Okay, fourth bracha of benching. That's our topic today. We're going to connect it. Right after we get an introduction to the fourth bracha of benching, we're going to then connect it to the 3 weeks in Tisha B'Av and even a little bit of Tu B'Av as well. So that is going to be our goal for tonight, our stated goal for tonight. Get everything ready. I get to watch myself as well. Okay, perfect. Okay. Right. If you want, by the way, it's actually a good idea. If you want, and you have a sitter in front of you, and you want to see the nusach of benching inside, yep. Just to follow along a little bit together with me, that'd be helpful. Okay, let's get underway. Number one, there are how many brachas to mention? We eat, we're satisfied. So after we eat and after we're nice and satisfied and satiated, there's a mitzvah of the Torah to bench. As everybody knows, well known, the making brachas in general is not a biblical obligation. It's midrabanan. On most of the occasions, on almost every occasion that we're making a bracha, it's because the rabbi told us to make a bracha. Before we eat, we make a bracha. Before we do a mitzvah, we make a bracha. We hear thunder, we make a bracha. But those are all midrabanan, and those are all rabbinically legislated, and they put the brachas together. They formulated the brachas as well. However, notable exception, there are two notable exceptions, and one notable exception is benching. When we conclude and we finish a meal that has in it bread, so we wash over the bread, we ate the bread, and now we have a mitzvah and a Torah to bench. Okay, good. It's a mitzvah and a Torah. Just as a parenthetical note, what is the other occasion where there's a mitzvah in the Torah to make a bracha? So it's Birchas HaTorah. So the fact that we make a bracha over Torah every morning, so that's also a mitzvah of the Torah. Okay, if you want to know where exactly that mitzvah is located in the Torah, that is a more than fair question. That's not our topic tonight. So it's a good question. Just not what we're going to be discussing this evening, but we are going to be discussing, however, the bracha regarding benching, and benching is not a short bracha. In fact, some people, I know maybe one or two of them. Some people are resistant to even washing because if I'm going to wash, I'm going to eat bread, and I'm going to have to bench, and I don't have the time or the patience to bench. So some people have benching phobia, if you will. Some people have pelagic phobia. So if you're going to become fleishik, then that means you're not going to be able to eat dairy for 6 hours afterwards. I suffer from no fleishik phobia. I've never hesitated to become fleishik. It's one of my favorite activities. But meanwhile, but benching phobia we all have. And so because benching is long, so when we talk about benching, so it's a composite of how many brachas. So all you need to know is the opening Mishnah of the 7th parak of brachos. The opening Mishnah says, Shosha shachul kachas chayim lazame. So 3 people eat together. So they're going to have to make a zimun. And then subsequently, the Mishnah describes that we're going to be making how many brachos in benching? Gimel brachos. We're going to be making 3 brachos. Benching is made up of 3 brachos. Let us take a moment to take a tour of benching and see the 3 brachos of benching. Ready? Number 1. The first bracha of benching starts off with Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hazanu salam kulo b'tuvo ... And it ends with the words Baruch Atah Hashem hazanu sakol. And that now will be the first bracha of benching. So far, so good. I know this is easy. It's going to get a little bit harder. Don't worry. The second bracha of benching now starts with the words no delacha, and that continues until we get to the chasima, the conclusion of Baruch Atah Hashem al haaretz v'al hamazon. And then we get to the third bracha of benching. The third bracha of benching is rachim, and it continues until we get to the final section of that third bracha of benching, boneh b'rachamav Yerushalayim. Okay. Now, hopefully, we are all Pavlovians and responded that after I said boneh b'rachamav Yerushalayim, what's everyone to say? Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, Pavlov was on to something. Okay, so we're all going to just knee-jerk response amen, and over the course of this evening, I'm going to explain to you why that is. And then we open up and we start the fourth bracha of benching. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam ha'kalavinu malkeinu adireinu boreinu go'aleinu ... Okay. I guess as long as we're here, let's learn our first thing together. That fourth bracha of benching, when does it end? What's the ending of that fourth bracha of benching? So it ends with the words la'olam al yichasrein. Okay, there is an addendum that is added to the end of benching. Lots of harachaman, 7 of them in total. A couple of other tefillas as well. If there's a balabais, we'll shout out to the balabais and a bracha to the balabais as well. Those are all addendums to the benching. But in other words, but really, when you get to the words al yichasreinu, that is the end of the fourth bracha. Okay, obviously, Minhag Yisrael is to say all the harachamans and everything that comes up afterwards, but that is all just simply that's bonus. That's not actually part and parcel of the fourth bracha of benching. Okay.
Rabbi Sugerman, you said there were 3 brachas, and now you're saying there are 4.
Okay, good. So perfect. Okay, good. So now we're gonna break up this evening into 2 parts. Part number 1 is that the fourth bracha of benching is not part of benching. Okay, it's not what I'm saying is not shocking. It's not radical. It's a Gemara. It's a Beferish Gemara. We're going to go through it together tonight. The fourth bracha of benching is not part of benching. Okay, that's what we're going to do. That's number 1. Number 2, the second thing we're going to do this evening is that if the fourth bracha of benching is not part of benching, so then what happened? Who added the fourth bracha of benching? Right? When the Gemara repeatedly says that benching is made up of 3 brachas and a fourth bracha was added afterwards, then it's not part of benching. So who would add it on and why? And then finally, the third part of our share tonight is why is it added on to benching? In other words, what we will learn together tonight is who added it on, and it was the result of what? And then we're going to try to connect it back to the first 3 brachas of benching. Okay, let's first start off with number 1. Number 1 is not an assertion. It's not a chiddush. It's not radical. The fourth bracha of benching is not part of benching. How do I know that? The Gemara says it. Okay, so the Gemara over here, I'm gonna outline the Gemara. Okay, I happen to have the Gemara in front of me, just so that you can fact check me, but you don't have to fact check me. I have the Gemara right here open. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef Teda Datov V'Hametiv Lav D'Oraisa. Okay, so here we are in the Gemara. It's in Brachos. It's Memvav, right? So I encourage you to look it up. So the Gemara in Memvav and Aleph says that Datov V'Hametiv, that's bracha number 4 of benching, Lav D'Oraisa. It's not part of the mitzvah of the Torah. The mitzvah of the Torah has arrived at its conclusion when you end with the words Boneh B'Rachamav Yerushalayim. That is it. That's the third bracha of benching. That is the final Torah bracha of benching. Now, how do I know that the bracha of Hatov HaMeitiv is not daraisa. Okay, so number one, ready? Number one, Sharei Polim Oker Mosa. Okay, so number one, the workers. Okay, I know this is going to sound amazing. The Gemara says, again, there's nothing, this is not fancy. This is not, we're not moving mountains over here. I'm literally just saying over a Gemara. Number one, and that is that right now you were given a lunch hour, not even a lunch hour. Enough time so that you can eat your lunch. Now, obviously, you're on the clock. In other words, the boss is expecting you to work, and you're working faithfully, but obviously we're human and we got to eat. So he's going to give us time to go ahead and to eat. Now, obviously, he knows that we're observant, and so we're going to wash before we eat, and we're going to bench after we eat as well. Okay. Again, it's not what I'm going to say is not radical, and that is that if you're working for somebody and you're on the clock, so what you'll do is that when you get to the bracha, Bonei Barachim of Yerushalayim, at that point in time you will stop, and you will not say the fourth bracha of bench, because what you are then doing is taking time away from your boss. Okay, I marvel at this Gemara. I'm really amazed at this Gemara. What are we talking about in terms of time? How much time on the clock does it actually take to say the fourth bracha of Hatov HaMeitiv? Okay, and now I know some people are fast, some people are slow. I happen to be part of the slower crowd. But in other words, but if you're fast or you're slow, we're talking less than a minute. It is less than a minute. I don't care if you're slow, and I'm one of them. There's no way that it's going to take less than a minute. So I just marvel. It's amazing that the Gemara is so sensitive to the fact that that's one extra minute that right now somebody's paying for your time. So you should be dutifully working for that individual. And this one extra minute, which is not necessary. And I really do want to qualify, and I want to make this as clear as possible. When I say not necessary, I don't mean under no circumstance. Under no circumstance, it's rabbinically legislated that we're going to say the fourth bracha. We are all going to say the fourth bracha. But in the context of when you are working for somebody else, and now your time is their time, so you are now supposed to omit the fourth bracha of benching. Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's number one. I'm Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marta Mishmei Rav Teita Tov HaMeitiv Lav D'Oraisa Shar Peis Posech Babarach Vein Chosein Babarach Kedetanya Kol Habrachos Kulam Posech Ben Babarach V'Chosein Behem Babarach. Okay, another proof the Gemara brings that the fourth bracha is not part of benching is the following. Look how it opens up. Let's take a look at the opening of that fourth bracha of benching. It opens up with the word Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. And so what? So the Gemara says that's a big deal. I'll tell you why. Because you will notice, and you've noticed this already. I'm just simply highlighting, but everyone here knows this. When you have a string of brachas together, the opening bracha always opens up with the words Baruch Atah Hashem, and then every subsequent bracha does not open up with Baruch Atah Hashem. This is the concept called bracha smucha lechaverta. Bracha smucha lechaverta dictates the demands that is in a series of brachas. Every bracha outside of the first one need not open up with the word Baruch Atah Hashem. Okay, the examples are numerous. I'll give you the most basic examples. Shmona Esrei. Shmona Esrei is a series of 18 brachas. I know it's now 19, right? A 19th bracha was added. Okay, thank you, Shmuel Hakatan. So the 19 brachas of Shmona Esrei. So the opening bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu, and then from there every subsequent bracha, with no exception, does not open up with Baruch Atah Hashem, because it's all strung together. The way I've described in the past, and let's say it again right now, is that basically it's like a train, where you have on the front train, you have the engine, and then what you do is you hitch on right, however many cars you need to hitch on. And once it's hitched on, so you don't need the Baruch Atah Hashem. The Baruch Atah Hashem is like the engine. It's like the first train. And then after that, everything else gets pulled along. So every subsequent bracha does not need to open up with Baruch Atah Hashem. There's simply no need for it, and it doesn't. So Shmona Esrei would be example number one, right? Just think in your head. Bracha number two of Shmona Esrei, Atah Gibor. Right? Bracha number three, Atah Kadosh. Bracha number four, Atah Chonein. Okay, and you can just do that for every bracha. This is bracha smucha lechaverta. That's one example. A second example, we'll stay right here in benching. The first bracha of benching opens up with the words Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hakel avinu malkeinu. Okay, I'm sorry. Hazar nes haolam kulo b'tuvo. That's bracha number one. And then how does the second bracha open up? No delacha. How does the third bracha open up? Rachena. Okay, good. In other words, those two brachas after the first one are brachas mucha lechaverta. And now, hopefully, right, the light bulb has lit up. And now, as we get to the fourth bracha of benching, so how should it begin? I'm not really sure, but something to the tune of Hatov Hametiv, something along those lines. Not Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. What is that telling us? The Gemara says. What's that telling us is that wasn't originally part of benching. That's number 2. Okay, number 3. Right, the Gemara continues, and that is the Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak Teda Tov Me'amet Avav Daraisa Shari Okrin Osa V'Deis Ha'avel. Okay, now I'm going to try to explain this one to you, but it's going to be strange because this is not our minhag. Okay, at one point in time we had a minhag, we no longer have it, and that is that if you're in the Beis Avel and you're going to be eating and you're going to be benching, the fourth bracha of benching gets replaced with a different nusach altogether. Okay. The Gemara happens to be the stop in brachos, stop membav, actually records and takes us through the nusach of the fourth bracha of benching in the Beis Avel. Okay, one of those halachic mysteries, which I'm not here to solve. It's almost unsolvable. But one of the halachic mysteries, especially for the Ashkenazic Jews, is that in the Beis Avel, we do not change the fourth bracha of benching as per the instructions of the Gemara. Why we don't do it is a mystery, and I'm not here to solve it. But the Gemara is just simply pointing out to the fact that, look, under certain circumstances, the bracha is going to get changed altogether. So clearly, this bracha is not part of benching. Okay. And as long as we're here, I'll, of course, mention the fourth and the most outstanding point of the fact that there's no way the fourth bracha is part of benching. There's no way. Because let's back up for just a moment. Right? How does that third bracha end? We can all do it together. Baruch atah Hashem, boneh barachamav Yerushalayim, and then we all say Amen. What just happened over there that we all said Amen? Okay, to our own bracha, which is unusual. The Gemara records it. It happens to be one daf early in brachos. The Gemara records that that's unusual. We don't normally say Amen, not to our own bracha. In fact, the Gemara says it's stronger. The Gemara says that under normal circumstances, you're not supposed to say Amen to your own bracha. Others who hear you make a bracha should respond Amen. But you're going to say Amen to your own bracha? You just made the bracha. Why would you be saying Amen to a bracha that you yourself just made? So the Gemara says under normal circumstances you don't, but here you do. Do you know why we make an Amen after Bonei Barachamav Yishalayim? It's the ending. Because it's the ending. Because it's the ending. Meaning because benching now has formally come to an end. It's the closure, it's the conclusion. Now, I'm looking around the room right now. I don't see a lot of Sephardim. Okay? Okay. All right, what can I tell you? In the Sephardic custom, they are so used to this. We Ashkenazim are not, but in the Sephardic custom, every single time you end a series of brachas, you answer Amen. Every single time, with no exception. Right? If you daven with the Sephardim, Nusach Sephardim, I'm not speaking to Nusach Sephardim right now. But in other words, I'm talking about Eidud HaMizrach. If you're davening with Sephardim, and you get to the end of a series of brachas, you finish with Ishtabach over there, so the bracha ends, Baruch Olamim, Amen. Because it's the end of a series of brachas. Whenever you end a series of brachas, you say Amen. Now for us Ashkenazim, it's not true. For us Ashkenazim, we only do it here and only here, and no other end of a series of brachas. Again, it's fair to wonder why. Not here for that tonight. I'm just simply pointing out this evening, it's the fact. The fact of the matter is that we're saying Amen for the simple reason that benching now has ended. Okay, so hopefully what I've done now in the first section of tonight's shir is I have, and again, by the way, I haven't done anything. This is all the Gemara. What we've done together is that we have concluded now that when you got to the Bonei Barachamav Yerushalayim, you have ended benching formally min haTorah. The Torah only requires us to make 3 brachas for benching, and that is it. And we have now concluded. And now, so it's fair to wonder what happened. Why is it now that benching is going to have a 4th bracha, which clearly was an add-on? It was not originally part of benching, that was added on. So you hopefully are wondering, it was added on by whom and why? And for that, we're here, and I will tell you. And it's actually very simple. The Gemara says it. The Gemara says it. Beferish. The Gemara says it on Memches. The Gemara says it on Memtes. Okay. A little bit of history. Yes. We need together to in order to know this and understand this. We need to know a little bit of history together. Okay. Let us take ourselves to the end of Vaisheni. End of Vaisheni. Unfortunately, our base of Mikdash was destroyed. 70 of the Common Era by the Romans. Okay, that we all know. Fast forward to about from the year 70 to about 60 years later, approximately. Right, sometime around the year 130 of the Common Era, thereabouts. And over there at that point in time, so the Jews felt that they were ready to mount a revolution against the Romans. Okay, it's at that point in time that somebody rised as a leader of the Jewish people and was able to put together an army, had massive amounts of followers. And here we get to the more exciting part of the story, and that is that he was even sponsored by one of the great rabbis of his day. The person I'm describing is perfect. The person I'm describing is Bar Kokhba. The rabbi who backed him is Rabbi Akiva. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so Rabbi Akiva backed Bar Kokhba, and what they did is that together they staged a revolution. Now, as far as the demise and the death of Rabbi Akiva, so that we all know about. So but as far as Bar Kokhba is concerned, so what happened to Bar Kokhba? Anyone offhand know what happened to Bar Kokhba? So and the demise of Bar Kokhba. So the Bar Kokhba died in battle. One of the final battles in which Bar Kokhba, again backed by Rabbi Akiva, fought was a battle in the city of Beitar. In the city of Beitar, so Bar Kokhba fought right faithfully, and but Rachmanis, so he died in that battle. And in the course of that battle, so the Romans wanted to make sure that this would never happen again. We don't want another revolt. We don't want another revolution. And so they killed Bar Kokhba, and Rabbi Akiva they tortured and they killed him as well. The death of Rabbi Akiva also, by the way, is found at the end of the Masechta of Brachos. Okay. What did the Romans do at that point in time? I'm kind of leaving out perhaps one of the most controversial parts of the story. I won't leave it out. In fact, I'll add it. The Rambam. I'm reading the Rambam right now. If you want to check it out afterwards, it's the Rambam, the 11th parak of Hilchos Malachim. So the Al Yale Al Datcha, the Rambam writes, and I'm reading it inside. I do need just somebody give me an idea of time. I didn't bring a timepiece. We have what? 7:42. Okay, fine, because I want to make sure I get it all in. Al Yale Al Datcha Shamelach HaMashiach Tzarich Lasos Osos Umostim. Don't think that the Mashiach has to be some sort of spellcaster and present wondrous signs. You know, and again, I'm just going to translate literally. The Rambam was never soft on his language, and in other words, he said it kind of like it is. So the Rambam says that, you know what the fools think? The fools think that Mashiach is some sort of spellcaster and sorcerer, and the Rambam says it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Eina davar kein sharei Rabbi Akiva, because as far as Rabbi Akiva was concerned, Chacham Gadol Mechachmei Mishnahaya. Rabbi Akiva was one of the Tanai, and V'hu Ayanose Kelev Shal Ben Koziva Hamelech. He was carrying the weapons of Ben Koziva. Now the Rambam means that literally. The Rambam means it figuratively. However, it's meant. In other words, he was a supporter of Bar Kokhba. By the way, the Rambam, when he refers to him, he calls him Bar Koziva, but it's the same. It's the same person. V'hu Ayomer Alav Shu Hamelech HaMashiach. V'dimahu b'chochach me'dorah Shu Hamelech HaMashiach. And he told everybody that this Bar Kokhba, who is leading our revolution, he is the Mashiach. Okay, I have to imagine you probably heard this before. If this is the first time you're hearing this, it's definitely shocking. But I would imagine, though, that nobody's shocked. You've heard this before. According to the Rambam, Rabbi Kiva thought that Bar Kokhba was, in fact, the Melech HaMashiach. Now, Rabbi Kiva, under normal circumstances, I will not be able to say this. But here I am. Rabbi Kiva was wrong. Ad shene'arag ba'avanos. And Kevan shene'arag noda she'ena Mashiach. And what proved Rabbi Kiva to be wrong? The fact that Bar Kokhba died. Now, never did they turn to Bar Kokhba and said, hey, do me a favor, could you take a rabbit out of a hat? Could you please do that for us? They didn't ask him to do that. In other words, he's what you and I would call a normal person with no superpowers. And yet, he was thought to have been the Mashiach. So and the Rambam goes on from there, but out of the interest of time, I didn't want to bury the lead. I know it's probably one of the most interesting parts of this period of history. Okay, now, back to the Gemara. The Gemara tells us that the Romans wanted to make sure that this will never happen again. So what they did after killing everyone in Beitar, Bar Kokhba included, is that they said nobody is allowed to bury any of the soldiers that we killed. And as a way of really impressing on the Jews that this is not something you're going to try again, so they punished the Jewish people by not allowing any of the soldiers, anyone who died in the Beitar battle, to be buried. Ad time. That's the Gemara, but that's not the end of the Gemara. Now, normally what happens is that if a body is left not to be buried, the body will go through decomposition. Okay, it's just the way of the world, and so the body will decompose. The body will smell. The body will be in a terrible position. Okay, and Rachmanis, anyone who has been involved and having to bury a body that has been left out and not been buried. So it's terrible. Speak to anyone, any member of the Chevra Kadisha, and they probably have a story to tell you regarding that. I don't want to get any more graphic. The Gemara tells us, however, that these bodies were left unburied. Now, in terms of the amount of time, the Gemara doesn't say how long it was. It was a significant duration of time, but I only would tell you that I don't know how long it was, but it was a significant duration of time. A miracle occurred, says the Gemara, and what happens is the bodies did not decompose. The bodies did not. Now, it happens to be that this event occurred on Tu B'Av, on the 15th day of Av. Okay, a detail, but anyway. So and finally, they were allowed to bury all the people who were killed in Beitar, and recognizing that an open miracle occurred, because decomposition simply just doesn't not happen. It happens. And by virtue of the fact that it did not happen, they recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did a nace. This is admittedly a very muted nace, but a nace nonetheless. And so what the rabbis at the time did is that they said that this is a miracle, and therefore it's cause for us to institute a bracha. What bracha did they institute at the time? The bracha of Hatov v'Hametir. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. He does good for others. Now, admittedly, by the way, this is not the normal circumstances that you and I would be making a bracha Hatov v'Hametir. The purchasing of a house, the purchasing of a car, right? Something that is good for you and good for others as well. Hatov v'Hametir. This is not something we normally would think about that would deserve and warrant a bracha of Hatov v'Hametir, and yet that's exactly what they did. And so they instituted the bracha Hatov v'Hametiv, and what they then did is that they took this bracha of Hatov v'Hametiv and they attached it to bench. And that is the backstory. That's the behind-the-scenes look of when the fourth bracha was added and why it was added. And then we're going to conclude this evening with one simple question, and I'll give you hopefully what I find to be a very, very powerful answer. Okay, so considering the fact that we now know the backstory to the fourth bracha benching. It's not part of benching. It was added to benching. It was added at a later point in time. It's not Minatorah. We went through every one of the proofs of the Gemara that's not Minatorah. right? And the simplest proof, of course, is that we say Amen after Bona Baruch Mav Yerushalayim. Then we went through the Gemara and Brachos in terms of the backstory of why it is that the rabbis instituted this Bracha Tov HaMeitiv. It was in response to this miracle that took place from where we are right now about 1900 years ago, thereabouts. So now, with all that stated, why was it added to benching? In other words, you understand that a miracle deserves the bracha, right? Hanukkah is a miracle. We give it a mitzvah and a bracha. We say hallow, and so you understand that it demands a bracha. But why do we say that bracha? Why did the Chachamim attach it to benching? So over here, I will conclude this evening with a comment by the Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah goes on to explain why it is that it was added to benching. Okay, watch carefully. It's rather remarkable. Every single time we're going to bench from this point going forward, you can think about the Meshech Chochmah. It really will add to your benching. It will enhance all of our benchings. Okay, number one. Okay, what we're going to do now is that we're going to review the first three brachas of benching. Okay, and the challenge now is that I'm going to pose to everybody is that no fewer than 2 words summarize each bracha of benching. Okay, a summary. Okay, bracha number 1. What is a 1 or 2 word summary of the first bracha of benching? Okay, good. Okay, now I'll give you credit because S I think we'll discount. In other words, but Hazanako, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sustains. He sustains. The Gemara tells us that the man comes down from Shemayim, and at that point in time, Moshe Rabbeinu recognized that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to sustain us. We're going to go 40 years in the desert. There's no food in the desert. There's no water in the desert, but the man is coming down. Hazan es HaKol. Hashem sustains us. Good. That's bracha number 1. Okay, let's do the same thing for bracha number 2. No more than 2 words. Summary for bracha number 2. Well, summarize the bracha. What's the bracha about? All right, so take a moment, go through the bracha. Yeah, it is upon the entrance to Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Eretz Yisrael. Again, if I'm gonna go with my two word rule, okay, made up rule. But if I'm going to go with my 2 word summary, Eretz Yisrael, right, for the land. Okay. Because what happens is that step number 2 is that after 40 years in the desert, we go into Eretz Yisrael and we get Eretz Yisrael. We conquer it, we divide it. We are now an autonomous nation in our own land, al haaretz, va'al hamazon, meaning the land, Eretz Yisrael, that's providing for us the food that we eat. But if you look through the entire second bracha, it's all about Eretz Yisrael. Okay, let's do this now for the third bracha of benching. What is the theme of the third bracha of benching? That's it. That's it. It's Binyan Yerushalayim, right? So for hundreds of years living in Eretz Yisrael, right, it took 480 years to pasuk in the beginning of Malachim. It took 480 years. That's a long time, right? We had a Mishkan, by the way, for many of those years, right? For almost 4 centuries, we had a Mishkan in Shiloh. But almost 5 centuries after being in Eretz Yisrael, so David HaMelech laid the foundation. His son Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash. So now, Boneh Berachamav Yerushalayim. In other words, Binyan Yerushalayim. Okay. Now, if you're following, by the way, the progression that we've made over here is very simple. Meaning, benching is all about us moving, receiving, conquering, and finally establishing Eretz Yisrael. Right? We're going 40 years in the desert, bracha number 1. We enter into Eretz Yisrael, bracha number 2, and we build the Beis HaMikdash. That's about 5 centuries of Jewish history, all collapsed into the 3 brachos of benching. Okay, that's it. That's benching. Those are the 3 brachos of benching. Man, Eretz Yisrael, Beis HaMikdash. Now, we are about 60 years after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. About 60 years later. And a revolution. And what's going to happen? We all know what's going to happen. We're going to win, right? Of course we're going to win. And we're going to rebuild the third Beis HaMikdash. And that's what Rabbi Akiva thought. And Rabbi Akiva, in fact, nominated, right now we could say this because we know, nominated a Mashiach to go ahead and to lead the revolt against the Romans. It's going to be successful. And we're going to have a Beis HaMikdash. Isn't that going to be amazing? And by the way, that's not a crazy thought. Meaning, after the Churban base of the first Beis HaMikdash, How long did it take before we got our second base of Mikdash? 70 years. So now we're 60 years after the destruction of the second base of Mikdash. I think it's fair to say, okay, got it, right? I know my history. I know what happened the first time around. It's going to happen again. We're going to win. And we did. And we lost. It's at that point in time, the Chachamim recognized the following. Okay. We lost, and we lost badly, and Rabbi Kiva was killed, and he wasn't the Mashiach. And I'm sorry, Bar Kokhba was killed, and he wasn't the Mashiach. Rabbi Kiva was killed, tortured to death, and not only that, but embarrassed, meaning, and we couldn't even bury our soldiers. And so the Meshech Chachma points out the following. This is something also, I know I'm saying a lot of takeaway points from this evening, but every time a miracle occurs to the Jewish people, the miracle was appropriate for the time. It's there to communicate a particular message, like the Hanukkah miracle, for example, right? The oil lasted for 8 nights. Of all the miracles that can occur, why that particular miracle? In other words, that miracle was a specific message to communicate to that people at that time. Every miracle, aside from just being a miracle, meaning aside from defying the laws of nature, is tailor-made for that period of time. The Meshech Chachma, right? Remember, Meshech Chachma was a Gaon from Dvinsk about 100 years ago, right? A very powerful thinker, very, very deep thinker. So he writes as follows: that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling the Jewish people the following with the nates. Meaning, at this point in time, all seems lost, right? Rabbi Kiva dies, Bar Kokhba dies, the army is defeated, all seems lost. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, here's a message I'm going to take now, you're going to take with you, and you're going to take this for a very long time. You see the bodies out in the field, they're supposed to decompose, they're not going to decompose. Every single time you go through benching, right, we're reminded, the desert, Man. We went into Eretz Yisrael. Okay, got it. And we built the base of Mikdash. But now we don't have Eretz Yisrael, right? Baruch Hashem. We are now in the 75th year of the miracle of the modern state of Israel. But we, in other words, for most of Jewish history, 70, 76, 77. Okay, good. So for most of our history, we have not had the state of Israel. We certainly do not have a Beit HaMikdash. And now what? Meaning we get through benching now every single time, and we're going to be like, we don't have that. Like, in other words, what's happening? So what the Meshech Chachma says, what the Chachamim did is, they stuck in a Tova Meitiv at the end of benching to remind us that the bodies died, they did not decompose. The Jewish people will not decompose. They look dead. Okay, and again, I know that's rough, but that was the case. They look as if they're dead, but there will not be decomposition. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have a sustain throughout time and throughout history, and we're going to be here. In other words, and just to imagine, by the way, they didn't know how long the Galus was going to be, right? They certainly had, right? Did they have any idea that it was going to be another 1900 years before we go back to Eretz Yisrael and make a modern state? That's a really long time. They added Hatov HaMeitiv to continuously remind us. At the end of every benching, I know right now we don't have Eretz Yisrael. I know we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. Hatov HaMeitiv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sustain us, even at the time where it looks at its worst. Okay. Good. Okay. Quick summary for this evening. So we went over the fourth bracha of benching. We noted that in the fourth bracha of benching, it is not part and parcel of the benching Minotaur. The benching Minotaur is 3 brachas, not 4. We went through the Gemara, all the various proofs of the Gemara that it is not part of benching. It was added on at a later point in time. We then went through the history of when the fourth bracha of benching was added. We went through the story of Bar Kokhba and Rabbi Kiva and the attempted revolution that took place some 60 years after Churban Bayesheni, and quite frankly, it's failure. But nevertheless, the bodies didn't decompose. And for that miracle, the Gemara says that the rabbis instituted the bracha Hatov HaMeitiv. And then what we did is that we explained why it is that the Chachamim took Hatov HaMeitiv and added it onto benching, because it's there to give us conciliation and to make us understand that even though benching tells us that there's one track of history which we went through, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not forget. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, nobody was on.